Greetings, viewers, and welcome to the latest episode of Yeah, I've Played, the show where we all play the same damn game and then talk about it. And today on the show we have Andrew Taylor and Jordan Hill. And I, of course, am Matt Hall. Alan Wake is the fourth game from Swedish developer Remedy Entertainment. It was initially released in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and was ported to the PC in 2012. Ooh. The game tells the story of a writer named Alan Wake, and the story is told through 6 episodic chapters, with an additional 2 special episodes available as DLC that more or less resolve the events of the game. So today we're going to break it down episode by episode, and if you haven't played Alan Wake, this video will be basically one giant spoiler.
Rife with spoilers.
So I would say if you haven't yet played it, I think we could all recommend the game.
Oh, absolutely. 100% recommend.
You could probably watch first fifth of this video if you want to get a little teaser. But
yeah,
I think anything beyond that.
Drop out pretty quick though.
Yeah. Just fucking stop the video and go play the game and then come back to us for the discussion.
It's absolutely worth it. And then you too could say, yeah, I played
Alan Wake.
Alan Wake.
So I'll give a brief recap of what happens in each episode, and as we go along, we'll stop and discuss all the particulars. In episode 1, titled Nightmare, Alan Wake and his wife Alice are taking a vacation to a small town in rural Washington called Bright Falls, and the couple is renting a cabin on Cauldron Lake. Alan is a famous writer, known for his series of crime thrillers starring a character named Alex Casey. Alan has been suffering from a 2-year-long bout of writer's block, and is hoping to just get away from the world for a while. However, we found out that Alice has been secretly in communication with a Bright Falls area doctor who specializes in helping artists. And she has also brought Alan's typewriter along on the trip. This sparks an argument, and Alan Wake storms out of the cabin. Suddenly, Alice screams for help. Alan rushes back to the cabin to find out that Alice has fallen off a balcony and into the lake. He dives after her, blacks out, and wakes up in a car wreck. Badly injured and completely disoriented, he makes his way to the nearest gas station for help, where he is eventually met by Sheriff Sarah Breaker. So that's the general overview of the first chapter, but there's a lot more in there. So the game actually opens up with a dream sequence tutorial. Mm-hmm. What'd you guys think?
What happens in the tutorial?
The first thing that happens is you decide if you want to use inverted view controls with your right analog stick if you're playing on a controller.
That's the very first thing.
And I restarted the game twice because I was like, my left stick isn't working. What the fuck? The left stick isn't working.
Oh, no.
Not realizing that the first thing you need to do is activate the right stick. It says look up toward the light. And how you look at the light, if you go down or up to look up, it will be like, oh, so you like inverted controls or you don't.
That's cool as hell. I didn't notice that. It's a really nice touch.
I just looked right up and then continued forward, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't really pause there at all or give that any thought.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. But
that's neat.
Aside from orienting you with the controls, what happens is Alan is in a dream. Mm-hmm. They do establish right on that it's a dream, and he hits a hitchhiker on the road.
Oh, okay, yeah. This brought that, just like that hitchhiker. You brought me right back into the scene.
And so he strikes the hitchhiker with his vehicle. The hitchhiker disappears, and then as he's walking, he's like, "I need to go to the lighthouse." He's drawn to this lighthouse for some reason.
Like a moth to the flame.
And he is chased by the hitchhiker, who is wielding an axe and taunting him. And eventually...
He stands back up. He Undertaker, sits back up, and then he starts pursuing Alan.
But he's covered in this weird, dark, shadowy nightmare.
There's some weird visage going on around him.
And he starts antagonizing Alan, right? He starts saying some vicious shit that some
Personal
hitchhiker would not know.
No, not at all.
You missed your deadline!
At that point, Alan is aware that he's in a dream, right? You said that.
It opens up where
he's like, I had a dream where I was driving. Yeah, that's it.
Driving.
So the game consistently has that narration from Alan where it sounds like he is, reading from a book, which I thought was immediately apparent, and I think that, I thought that was cool.
It's I like the style that it goes in right away, where it does make you feel like you're diving right into the start of a story. You know what I mean? If you're reading the book, you're opening up, this is the first page. It's kind of introducing you to some of the characters. but in this sense, it's a video game, so you're learning how to use all your buttons.
Yeah. And so eventually, as you're fleeing from the hitchhiker / axe murderer, you are greeted by this like disembodied voice that's sort of like coming out of this like blinding light.
Follow the light.
And the voice is guiding you, and they basically say like, look, the light can stop these dark figures. So he like beams down a flashlight to you. Yeah. And then he's like, but that's not all. Once they're taken care of with the light and the darkness is no longer protecting them, then you can shoot them to death.
You gotta blast their ass away.
He also beams you down a revolver, and you're continuing to flee as the voice is kind of guiding you, and you run into this man. And the man's like, Alan, it's me, remember me?
Mr. Wake, it's me. Clay Stewart, remember? Quickly, get inside. There's no time to lose. Oh, no. Stop. No! Damn it, die! No! No! No!
Well, I wish I knew his name. I'll put it on screen right now. I think his name is Clay Stewart. Let's see if I'm right.
He might have been.
I may have been. This guy, if you want to get super deep into deep lore, this guy, who I believe is named Clay Stewart. I don't know how.
You got it that time.
Thank you. He has had a recurring dream where he meets Alan Wake every night, and they try to escape together, and he keeps failing and dying. He becomes obsessed with this idea and writes a book about Alan Wake and Bright Falls and the events that take place there. And this book is part of the like special edition version of the game where they actually did like a bound version of this book.
Oh, wow.
But if you buy it on PC, it comes with a PDF of it. And it's like a full like 44-page book, I think, of like case files, and it's handwritten, and there's like scans of like notes and photos and like newspaper clippings. Like it's as if like there was just like a fanatic like was like, wow, there's this like crazy thing that happened in Bright Falls, and it's just like this dream I've been having. And he just wrote this giant book. So that's like one connection that I was totally unaware of the first time I played the game.
Yeah, it seems like that's the theme I won't get into anything else, but as you continue through the game, that it seems like every little detail is incredibly important. It seems like they really don't like waste any time. There's no wasted breath with anything that's going on. You know what I mean? Everything that you can explore, everyone you can interact with has something deeper going on, it seems.
Yeah, and yeah, I would go on to say that we're mentioning this because there's so much expanded universe available to the player that they really, really fleshed out this enormous world far beyond the scope of the game and the DLC.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, they really, really made this a whole experience. So like nothing is insignificant.
And it seems like it's really what you're willing to put into it. Because Matt, all the stuff you've been telling me about with this Clay Stewart or whatever and all these other things, the PDF in the game, I haven't found any of that.
Yeah.
So I just clearly need to, go into extras, go into options, do that stuff. And it seems like the amount of effort you're willing to put in is what you'll get out of it.
There's also
so you can still have a ton of fun, just, casually going through.
That's like kind of a bigger idea that I want to discuss in another video, but Remedy games are really good at having incredibly rich, complex lore if you want to explore it, but also having an experience that's pretty much just as satisfying for the casual fan.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, really hard to make both experiences really, really, really engaging for both audiences.
Absolutely.
And they fucking nail it somehow.
It seems like it because I'm already, like I said, I'm dying to read more about it. I'm dying to learn more because I was like, wow, I have to play through this game again. It has a lot of replay value, I feel.
Oh, yeah. I'd agree.
This is something that Jordan and I feel like if somebody we know is playing through a Fallout game, and maybe you'd feel this way as well, Matt, any of them, I guess, choose any Fallout game. If they kind of like don't read all the computer like emails and text files and stuff, you're just like, oh man,
you're missing
missing so much. But there's still a whole game without that. I feel like Alan Wake finds that just the peak of both of those things, where it's huge for you if you just play through it normally, and it's tremendous for you if you do absorb that supplementary content, including a half-hour TV spot that they produced, right?
Yeah,
really?
there was like a web series, basically.
Okay.
Like 5-minute episodes, basically a prequel to Alan Wake.
Okay.
And it gives a little more context as to what's happening in Bright Falls. And so yeah, you can find it on YouTube. There's also a website dedicated to it that has like all the episodes and also a little writing about each one if you want to go even deeper.
And there's a little cartoon, Alan Wake, and he says, "Press the button to watch the next episode."
Move the globe.
Like Inspector Gadget.
So it's cool.
There's the TV show, there's the book, there's 2 comic books. They're both like maybe 30 pages. These 2 little comic books like expand the universe even more, and you're like,
that's so
oh,
cool.
that's, all the characters have so much more motivation than is always present on screen, even though their motivations are very obvious
Absolutely,
on screen,
yeah.
but like they're all fully fleshed out people with families and lives and experiences, and a lot of that information is out there for you to get. So that's the gist of it. But then even today, I found out about some blog that is like written in character.
God.
And like
From another character?
yeah.
Wow.
It's never ending.
So I would
And
not
all
be
of this
surprised if
is-
there's even more.
And all of this is like, it's canonical. It's written
It's
by
all canonical.
people who are involved in the
Most of it's
development
written
the
by
game.
Sam Lake,
Okay.
the writer of the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool,
And
then.
to get, just to tie this off, the other thing is there also is the Alan Wake's American Nightmare game, which is a standalone adventure, but it is canonical, is tied in, and it does explore some of the characters introduced very late in the game. And also there is the connection to the game Control and the Alan Wake AWE DLC expansion for Control, again, goes even deeper into the Alan Wake story, and for the first time officially really establishes the like shared universe in Remedy Entertainment games that they've always like hinted at, but because they haven't had the rights to all the characters they've developed over the years, they bought the rights to Alan Wake from Microsoft, they own the rights to Control, and so they just immediately like merged those
The
2
moment
things
they could.
officially. And it almost seems like they had been planning it the whole time and just didn't have the resources to, because it's like, it's too perfect. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like something they worked backwards on.
Like, it seems like that was the intent the entire time.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
team
that's
seems
cool.
so creative and smart that I
Oh.
wouldn't be surprised if they did somehow, or
It's-
like
yeah.
created a world that they would lend itself to them finding a new medium to express it into.
I think that's part of it too, where I
Like
think they
setting
know
themselves up
like
for it.
where to leave things open in ways that will excite them to continue stories, and they don't write themselves into corners.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's something I noticed as an overarching theme throughout the game. Was while you're never really left asking, wait, what the hell's going on? It is kind of leave it open to you being like, I do want to know more about how this happened though and surrounding
Yeah.
it. But we should stop talking about these bigger ideas.
Yeah, so that's if you want to go much, much deeper. But essentially you wake up, your wife is like, hey, honey, wake up. We're on the ferry. We're taking the ferry to Bright Falls.
And Alan says, "Oh, shut up! Oh,
He's so
God damn it,
mean to his
Alice.
wife.
Alice,
To the moon.
to the fucking moon with you."
So you're on the ferry.
I love this ferry scene.
The ferry ride, because, well,
Ferry scene's so smart.
we live next to an area that uses a ferry. So I think we've all been on the ferry quite a
Yeah.
bit in our lives.
Oh yeah,
I'd
absolutely,
say.
yeah.
We-
Very,
I think
very
a lot of
regularly.
people have not.
No, it's a very specific thing to where we're from. Absolutely, that we have such a regular exposure to being on a ferry.
Yeah.
And it's so accurate.
Yeah.
It is.
It's crazy.
If you want to get out of the car and look around, you're like, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Did
I've
you
seen a lake.
notice the hunting truck
Yes.
had 2 rifles and then just a pile of blood in the bed of the truck?
Yeah.
I didn't notice the blood the first time I played.
Oh, you didn't?
I got up on the observation deck sort of
Yeah.
thing and looked down, and I was like, oh my god, that's the truck's. I'm sure it's just like deer blood or something.
I'm
but
concerned that I probably noticed that and didn't think anything of it because I'm used to living in this kind of
yeah,
country ass place that we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, ah, it's a truck.
The
No,
ferry
I-
was like
listen, I insist. You go ahead.
okay. The ferry was like the first moment to me where I had to ask myself, is this going to be an open world game? Because I had no preconceived notions coming into Alan Wake. I thought Alan Wake was Amnesia: The Dark Descent when I first picked it up. I did not know that they were two separate games.
I have no idea.
I thought it was Heavy Rain.
Yeah, I didn't really. I had no idea what Alan Wake was going into this.
I thought it was Artemis Fowl.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason.
You thought it was
in my
Arx
mind.
Fatalis.
I thought it was
Arx
Arx Fatalis.
But
Which, I'd love to check out.
I think that's a good thing because then I don't come in with any preconceived notions ultimately.
I had
And it was
no
fun
idea
because
what I was
immediately on the ferry I noticed you get out of the car and there's really no direction. But you're also just waiting to arrive.
Yeah.
And you can just wander around and like the NPCs will speak to you to a degree or say something.
To touch on a recurring theme, and Matt, I'd love to hear what you're about to say, but like,
But shut up for now.
right, don't you dare talk just yet. The thing in this game, something that I told Jordan, Matt and I started the game before Jordan did. Even on that very first scene on the ferry, if you pay attention to what's going on around you, all of that has significance that pays off.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
It's not like if you miss it, you're going to miss something large. I'm just saying it all ties back
It's a real
in.
Chekhov's gun situation. What I was going to ask was, I tried to like play Half-Life with you one time.
Yeah.
It was like not working out great
Yeah,
because
we were having technical difficulties.
and also I remember you thinking that the intro train scene was kind of boring.
And this is Half-Life 2?
Half-Life 1.
Oh, Half-Life 1.
Have you played
okay.
Half-Life 1?
Yes, I played all
And
the-
you know
all
how
Half-Life.
the game opens up and you're just on the tram into work, like you're
Yeah.
on the rail train. And when I first played Half-Life when it came out, that was insane. I'd never seen anything like that. It was showing all this world building and you're like, but playing it in 2021, you are just kind of on like a 3-minute long, really, really slow cutscene where
It was very slow.
you everything you see on that ride is going to come back and has significance. It's the same idea as what they're doing in Alan Wake.
absolutely.
I thought it was very interesting that it's the same idea where you're on a slow-moving public transit type vehicle, getting acclimated to the game world and everything. But I feel like Alan Wake, like modernized that
well.
idea really well.
Well, absolutely, because you're still engaged. I didn't feel like I was waiting
Yeah.
while I was on the ferry. Whereas in
Yeah.
Half-Life, you absolutely feel like you're just kind of waiting. Like you're observing, and it's
Right.
cool. But the second or third time you try to play through it, you're like, I'm just waiting for this to be
it
over.
sucks the second, and it does it kind of, I think, exemplify like the mundanity of just being like, yeah, I'm
a guy.
I'm going to work.
This is my 9 to 5.
Yep,
Yeah.
just taking the tram to work.
My reference for that is that if you're familiar with 2001: A Space Odyssey from the 70s, 1970s, that movie, when you first see the spaceship, it's like it feels like a 15-minute scene of it just showing you the entire spaceship moving and all of its anatomy, so you can really get the scope of it. Because audiences at that time, that was a new thing.
I've
What's
never
a spaceship?
seen that.
It's
That
not
was
a
mind-blowing,
It's not
yeah.
a flying saucer. Like a flying saucer, you're like, oh, okay. You're like, oh no, this is a real, like, realistic spaceship. It's gigantic. Nowadays, like, if you see a spaceship, like, we just know what they are. So I think it's a similar concept to how Alan Wake did modernize that concept, and it felt just really good. And I was engaged from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you bump into a man who is the local night host for the radio station.
Thomas
cool guy.
Maine, I believe. His last name's Maine. I know that, but I can't remember his first name.
Doubt it's Thomas.
And we'll check his name and put it right here.
Oh, I remember his name. It was,
Pat Maine.
Pretty good.
yeah,
So he
making a lot of work for Matt in the future.
he asked, he's like, oh, Alan, can I recognize you because you're a famous author.
Which is funny. Like, that's the first guy Alan sees. He's like, I'm on vacation with my wife. I'm trying to get away from
Right.
Alan Wake. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, geez, man.
Yeah.
But he handles it well.
And he does Maine isn't exactly like, he's not like, oh my god, Alan Wake.
he's
He's
very
like, oh, Mr.
reserved.
Wake.
He's
you know?
chill. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying to get him to, well,
He wants to do an interview with him or something.
to
He's
do
like,
an
all right,
interview.
cool. I'll respect your privacy. Because Alan's like, sorry, man. I'm just trying to get away. You know how it is. Like, I don't want anybody to know I'm here.
right.
So you pull into town and you need to go to the diner to get the keys to the cabin that you're staying in. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you walk in,
There's a fucking cutout.
There's a
A
cutout
life-size cutout
of
of you.
Alan Wake. Mm-hmm. And I remember, to step forward a little bit, you talk to the waitress, whose name is Rose, who, again, has significance in the story, even though it doesn't seem like it. And she explains to you that she is a super fan of Alan Wake and that she I don't know, stole or like
They gave it to her.
They gave that
The local bookstore.
yes, because she was such a super fan. They're like, yeah, you can have after his last. He did a signing there, or it was just the book release of
Yeah.
because he just had a really big.
As we find out later, like he, had completed recently completed like a publicity tour.
I'd
So
like
that
to
was part of
know.
that.
I'd like to know what you guys thought of that part, because when I first saw that, I was like, initially, like right when I first saw it, I was like, oh man, like I thought the game was like authors are, they're not. There's a lot of celebrity authors, but not a ton. And I was like, this small, very small little town is a big fan of Alan Wake, so I thought it was I was just like, oh, I don't know about that. But when it was explained that it was Rose and she happened to be a super fan, it seems like that could be like a cheesy concept. Like the first place he goes, people are already recognizing him as an author. Like maybe, but
I think they do put him on like a Stephen King level. Where you're
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna
he's
say
got a
it's-
look, and
Yeah, if Stephen King just came walking into the Coffee Cat, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't think
I guess-
everyone there would be like, "Oh my
Probably.
gosh, that's Stephen King."
that's
you
a
know?
good point. That's something I didn't
but there
know
would be
that
a
in
few
that
people
first
who are
moment.
like, holy shit, it's Stephen King.
Yeah.
Other people would be like, oh,
Stephen King.
yeah, I
And
know,
just
yeah, he
ignore
writes
it,
his books.
yeah.
I'm,
Like,
you
I
know.
know that guy. For
He
some
writes
reason.
that book where like the never mind.
Is that
Not gonna talk about
What's that book
my
about
problems
John,
with his
John Wayne Gacy, right?
the ending of his books are a little rough sometimes. Is that the guy who makes those shitty movies? So yeah, what did you guys think? Did it feel, I feel like those first impressions of the game, I could have perceived them as cheesy, but they were endearing, and like I enjoyed the atmosphere. I was instantly in the world.
I really loved the diner.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I had the same reaction where I was like, oh, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was like 1 second of like, this is weird, but also
It just worked.
it's probably how Alan felt. Was like, oh, what the fuck?
yeah.
Okay.
Like all right,
she's
they
a
are
man.
they are my fans.
So you also meet a police officer, and you also meet the two Anderson brothers,
Yeah.
who are Tor and Odin Anderson.
Yeah.
I know their names.
And they're two old rocking guys. They're wearing like leather jackets.
Yeah,
and
like old
bandanas.
heavy metal Judas
Yeah.
Priest
Yeah.
style.
So the game does take place in 2010, and they were in a band back in the 70s and 80s called the Old Gods of Asgard.
In any other game, dude, you go into a diner, there's a couple of kooky characters, and you're like, okay, whatever. They're just trying to make the for the beginning of the game fun. We got these characters, whatever.
Yeah.
It's world building. Everyone in that diner is significant.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Some of them beyond what you'll ever imagine.
I also love
yes.
I just love the character development in this game is really good because immediately you meet those two guys and like you said, they're just two wacky old dudes in there, but
they
then
seem
also
like they're senile, kinda
it's revealed
crazy.
that they get out a lot from the asylum they're in or whatever, or the
So
home
they're
that they're in.
they're at the Cauldron Lake Lodge, which is run by Dr. Emil Hartman.
the gentleman that Alice has been in communication with.
Yes.
Yes,
so-
unfortunately.
So he's a doctor, a mental doctor.
but they,
I don't know what his actual
specifically
like,
for creatives, he's some
Yeah.
sort of a
That's where he
therapist
I think
for
he's
creatives.
I don't know. Maybe there's some context I missed, but I think we're deviating from the path a little bit. But I think he's a quack is the word that I would use
Yeah,
to describe
absolutely.
that man.
Yeah,
but
he's
on
a
your-
Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
But they have like a day pass basically.
Yeah.
From the lodge. So it's
their
not
favorite
like
little
it's
diner.
there. It's not an asylum where they're always like locked up all day.
Oh, yeah,
it's
no,
a very
no.
small town kind of thing.
There is on your way to grab the key, you're supposed to pick it up from Stuckey.
Charles Stuckey.
Charles
Stuckey.
You're supposed to meet Charles Stuckey at the diner.
But
He's the owner of the gas station,
He's the owner of Stuckey's gas station.
but he was at the diner, and that's where he asked you to meet him to get the keys to go to your cabin.
Yep.
And that's when you're introduced to what you don't realize at the time is going to be like the main mechanic of the game. You have to make it down
Yes,
this
is
dark
is
hallway.
finding Charles Stuckey, which is kind of what the whole game is about.
The entire game.
Alan
you
Wake
gotta
finding
find him.
Stuckey.
He was in the bathroom the entire time.
He's just been taking a fat shit
This is stupid.
for
No, but
months.
this is so basically they're like, oh, he's in the bathroom, and you're for some reason you're like, well, I can't wait. I need to go.
Yeah.
I need to go interrupt him in the bathroom.
couldn't
I'm
possibly
Alan
wait.
Wake.
Even though your wife is not outside of the diner waiting
No,
for
she-
you.
No, she's like
She
going
She goes
getting
and
some
runs
supplies.
errands, yeah, and then so realistically, you could have sat down for a moment at the counter,
Chilled
Had a
out,
cup of
grabbed
coffee.
let Stuckey,
coffee.
and then
Had a couple flapjacks.
whole game would have been.
So when you
Hunky-dory.
wait, there's a it's just there's a diner, there's a hallway, and then the bathrooms. At the entrance to the hallway, there's an old lady clutching a lantern. She's like, "Be careful, you can get hurt in the dark. Oh,
Yeah.
you shouldn't go in there." And you're like, "Whatever, bitch."
Yeah, okay.
And so
insane woman.
You
Because
go.
the hallway's dark. I didn't remember her.
That's fair. That's fair. You know, we'll bring her up again later.
She stuck with me because she immediately reminded me of Log Lady from Twin Peaks, the lady walking around the log, and I was like, I wonder if she has a similar.
Put a tack in that for a moment,
Okay,
because
absolutely.
I want to ask you something else about Twin Peaks.
Matt,
Okay.
can you do a cool graphic of Jordan putting a tack in it?
You say fuck it. You go down the hallway. Hallway is dark and weird, and it is your first time encountering the darkness, like you were
I'll go
saying.
meet this
And it
stranger.
is very eerie, however. It does a good job immediately of you being
is.
like, I am uncomfortable in this darkness.
You're like,
And then-
but whatever. I need to go get this key from a stranger who's in the bathroom.
Who's taking a fat shit.
Right. And so this, you're like, poof, 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 come on out. Charles, he doesn't. A
Motherfucker!
lady interrupts you from behind.
Mm-hmm. As they do.
Pause. And she's like, here's the direct. And do you notice when she's like, she gives you the key and the directions to the cabin? It was a very like unnatural movement that like
Oh, yeah.
I didn't catch the first time I played it. The second time I played it, I was like, wow, that was like a really menacing like move she did with her hand. It was very, very like particular animation. I'll show it here.
I noticed that.
She was immediately scary.
Yeah, I noticed she was creepy and weird, but like a fool, I also didn't think it was significant.
She's surprisingly actually clear in that opening scene. Like when she first appears to you in the cut scene,
Yeah.
she's very dark, very creepy looking. And then you leave that cut scene and you have to return back to the diner and walk in the bathroom. And she just looks like a regular old woman. I did the same thing Andrew did where I said, oh, she must not be that important.
Right.
Because it seemed at first I was like, oh, this bitch is...
Because she
gonna
had like
be
that weird dark aura,
Yeah.
similar to the hitchhiker.
the hitchhiker at the beginning. But then immediately she just seems like somebody else in the diner. So I was like, maybe this was just Alan's paranoia, you know what I mean?
Right.
His, he's in his own head.
But what we'll come to find out is that the reason I think that she doesn't have a stronger dark aura is because that dark presence is still growing. It's still gaining power.
Yes.
It hasn't yet really broken into the world fully as
Just
it soon
simmering
will.
right now.
The other thing that should have been a big red flag is that as you leave the diner,
Oh, yes.
you get back in the car, you're like, hey, Alice, I got the keys and the directions. And she's like, yeah, that's what I fucking told you to do. As you're driving away, Charles Stuckey stumbles out of the diner. He's like, Mrs. Wake, no, you forgot your keys.
Shit on his hands still, you know what I mean?
And then he like collapses.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait, what the fuck? Who gave me the keys? And if if I didn't, am I even going to the right cabin?
Immediately, as soon as that happened, you have one of those moments where you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is clearly, this is the
doomed.
plot point.
Yeah. Like I thought the game was really good at slowly introducing horror elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really wasn't. It's like it felt like you were watching a movie or like you were reading a horror novel, where it's that slow build. A horror movie doesn't start out and in the first scene you see the monster.
Right.
If you did, then you don't want to watch the rest of the movie. What's the point? Half of the build-up is you being, oh, there's this tension. What's it look like? What is it? What is this thing that's terrorizing? And they do a really, really good job because
Some would say you should never even show the monster.
Yeah, people can argue that. Cloverfield did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making people
No,
puke.
it does a really good job, like you said, where the nightmare's really not scary at all.
No.
You know what I mean? Because it is just a tutorial. You feel like you're not really in any danger.
And you do have that control, that sense of control, and the sense of safety from the voice that's
yeah, the
guiding
guiding light.
Yeah.
And by the fact that they tell you outright, you're having a dream. None
Yeah.
of this is real. And then the next really creepy part is seeing the woman in the bathroom, and then immediately that's diffused when she's just a normal woman again.
you. Right.
So you're like, okay, maybe I'm being jumpy. You know what I mean? That's how it
On
made me
vacation,
feel.
He's coming back from the tour.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to write a page in 2 years or whatever. He's freaking out. He's, yeah.
So we find out at the cabin that Alice has a phobia. She's afraid of the dark.
A bitch.
Deathly afraid of the dark.
You're 4
So-
years old?
I know, it sucks. It's terrible. So Alan gets the power going. He's like, don't worry, we'll be inside before nightfall. We'll have the lights on. And she's like, Alan, come upstairs. I have a surprise for you. The surprise is, as I mentioned, the typewriter. He gets pissed, says, God damn it, Alice!
He picks up the typewriter and just smashes it over the head.
And he rushes outside, and he even says, like, oh, she won't follow me into the darkness. Like, smugly kind of being like, I have like a immediate out from this argument, and I can just escape, and she's too weak to follow me.
It's very manipulative. It's
Yeah.
very, it doesn't open up with Alan in a good light at all.
No.
It doesn't make you don't feel like you're playing as the hero in this game. You know what I mean?
That's why I was like, is anyone the good guy? It's like, what the
He
hell?
kind of sucks shit. So, like I said, she screams, he rushes back in, she's fallen off the balcony into Cauldron Lake. He dives after her, blacks out, and wakes up
In a car wreck.
in a car wreck.
Yeah, I'd like to know your guys' feelings on that moment because that was
I said, what the fuck?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I felt I had missed something. You know what I
did
mean? I was
too.
like, did I skip a cutscene?
Yeah, well,
You know?
I mean, you find out eventually that you did kind of lose some time
Yeah.
in between those moments.
Was there anything significant that happened on your trek from the car wreck back to the to this new gas station?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the
That
it's
is where
the
you really
This is where the game really begins.
start-
you
playing.
get into the actual gameplay that
The-
that's going to be the rest of the
Yeah, so like you're in the car wreck, you get out, and you're like, I see the lights at the gas station, I gotta make my way through there. But you're in the forest, and there's just those same dark, shadowy figures from your nightmare
Yeah.
are now there, and
They're after you.
they're after you, and you are taking them out.
yeah.
Why don't we take a second to explain how you how you kill
you
enemies,
dispatch?
how you dispatch enemies in this
So-
game. I liked how Matt has described it to me. It's a little reminiscent of another game.
Oh, it's Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, but for real gamers.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was disappointed. I beat Luigi's Mansion in a few hours and 100%ed it. And I was
Yeah?
like, man, this game is great, but I wish it had a little more challenge. I get that it's a kid's game, but
And wasn't it the release title for the GameCube?
was.
I think it was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
That and Super Mario Sunshine, I think, were the two.
No, it was that and Resident Evil were the first two releases, as well as Super Smash Brothers Melee.
I think the Luigi Luigi game came before a Mario game.
Luigi came.
Oh, I did it.
So in Luigi's Mansion, you have to use your flashlight to stun a ghost, and then you suck them in, and as they're spinning around, you have to hold the joystick in the opposite direction to suck them into your vacuum, and eventually it works. In Alan Wake, you have your flashlight. You have your flashlight, and you have to aim it at the enemies to slowly take away their shadowy darkness power.
Right. So when you aim it at an enemy, there's like a circle, there's an aura, and
It's
some
like
have a
a-
larger one, some
Like
have
a
smaller
lens
one.
flare almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like their shield.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as it shrinks, because you put more light on it, it disappears, and then the dark presence leaves them.
You know what I'm surprised they didn't do is that you don't have to keep your flashlight aura inside of the circle. That could have been an interesting
I did
concept.
notice that, and I think it's because something else I liked about that whole thing is that it's also you don't have to constantly be focused with the light. You can just
Right.
have your casual. You're like a.
So if you hold the L trigger, you do focus the light harder,
Yes, yeah.
but it drains your battery. But you are always holding it.
Yes, and just by nature of holding it and shining it on someone passively,
Oh,
you
that
can
does
still
still do damage,
deplete
yeah.
the yeah.
And it doesn't, their shield doesn't recharge.
No, only
which
the
is nice.
stronger enemies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I noticed like we'll get to it later in the game, but when you start fighting some of the bigger that seem like area bosses, you know what I mean? It won't come back like you won't shrink it and then watch it come back, but you'll destroy it, and then if you don't kill them immediately, it will reappear.
Yeah.
That's
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
I don't think I caught that.
You would have had to be pretty bad at those moments. So
Yeah, I was
so that was
very
why
pro.
I noticed.
That's a very pro gamer.
Well,
I'd
I
like
like
to.
I like that it doesn't, that you can kind of break it down over time, because anytime you're being encountering enemies, you're almost always being swarmed.
Yes. And I do like that it's a deterrent. The moment you shine the flashlight on them, when you focus it, they
usually
they
slows
put their
them.
arms up, they start backing away. You can kind of get a little space between you and them
You can
to then
also
reassess.
You can also use it as a quick. If a guy's about to attack you, if you flash him real quick, he'll get stunned and
Yeah.
he'll like do it.
Rather than like if you forgot to dodge in the moment. Because
Yeah.
the dodge is another mechanic that I liked a lot. Mm-hmm. And I like
Dodging's
the way
cool.
that it's like it'll quickly...
You are not faster than any enemy. All the enemies are faster.
They're
than you.
all. That is something I really liked. Was that like you feel overpowered in a lot of games when you know what I mean as a main character. I did not feel overpowered really at any moment.
It handled like the sort of survival horror like weakness, almost not tank controls, but like a slower character
Yeah.
and with much more swift, powerful enemies, and that survival horror feeling of being like, I kind of got like these like cement boots, I'm
yeah.
fucking.
Well, he's a writer.
Yeah.
You know, he's not an athlete. You know what I mean?
like-
He's not like a
He's not
physical.
a schlubby, but he's not. Yeah, he's not.
No.
He maybe runs a couple miles a day to keep his figure, but that's it.
Yeah,
You know
that'd be the
what I
most.
mean?
But
Like,
he also
maybe.
it also makes it clear that he
also an
drinks
alcoholic.
heavily.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
like
absolutely
that he's
talking
not
about-
in shape by any means.
They talk about substance abuse.
And yeah,
So you go through the forest area, and eventually you do encounter
Ducky.
Charles Stuckey.
yes, I do. That you also get introduced though. I can't remember if it happens before or after Stuckey. I believe it's one of the first things when you get in the woods. This is when they introduce the Night Springs TV show, and also Maine's radio show.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Remedy games all have these sort of like meta stories within them that are told through traditional media formats like radio or television. They've been doing it since Max Payne, and each game that they release kind of iterates that in different ways and evolves that. And Night Springs is Twilight Zone, basically.
Yeah,
Which-
it has a very similar intro.
Before we
And
go too
concept,
far
all
into that, because I
yeah.
do want to discuss the Night Springs for a moment, going back to another TV show, did you notice? Because I didn't notice this at first until I saw a different shot of it.
What was that?
Twin Peaks. It's the diner from Twin Peaks.
Is it?
Yeah.
Does it have the same layout?
I'm visualizing
It is.
It's,
It is
It's I think
pretty much
it's
like
the
they
same
like
diner.
did their fan fiction
Yeah,
level
because
editor
effectively-
version of the Twin Peaks diner.
Okay.
You walk in and you go to the right, and that's where David Lynch would generally be sitting in any episode that he was in, where he's flirting with the waitress. Yeah. And then the weird military guy's usually sitting where the old guys were, over on the left side. I don't think you've have you seen Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Okay.
Don't tell him I've never seen Twin Peaks.
I haven't watched Twin Peaks either, but I've
No?
seen I've
Okay.
seen episodes. Like I'm familiar with it enough that I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's like some Twin Peaks. There's some Lynchian
It's
sort of
absolutely-
influences in throughout this game.
Yeah.
But it is straight up. They remade the Twin Peaks
Yeah,
diner.
it's very
That's cool.
at the very least it's super similar. Because yeah, shit.
No, it's intentional. I watched the commentary track.
Yeah.
And this game also has like in-game commentary. So if you
Okay.
want to play it again, basically a little like talking head window pops up in the corner, and they
Okay.
just like talk about different parts of the game.
That's pretty cool. I love that. I'd love that.
And they're
I have
like,
to play do this again.
they're like, and you might recognize this diner. And 'cause,
Wink, wink.
What are they gonna say?
Yeah, they're just gonna outright deny it.
But to Night Springs, it's a Twilight Zone
yeah,
style TV show.
Like it starts with a narration where it's like, there was once a man who was confused about how he feels. Should he vape or not? In this world, there's
I
only
think-
one choice.
Is the first one you encounter the quantum suicide one?
Yes.
So, I don't want to get too deep into my insane Remedy fan fiction, but the idea of quantum suicide and quantum immortality that they discuss, and the idea of like, if an event happens in this one timeline, and then like he basically said like I made it so that when I pull this gun to my head, I will not die because like the timeline, like because of the whatever device he has that's like
yes,
the quantum time disruptor, he's forced this reality to not accept him dying from that gun. So that gun is like an object of power that is linked to this reality that he's in, and so another version of him will die in a different reality. But this
10
reality,
times just in that clip.
yeah, but this reality he lives.
Yes.
And then
But-
someone unplugs the machine, and then because he doesn't have that power, he kills
It's
himself.
so slapstick, so
Yeah.
like
But-
ham-fisted.
I noticed that
Yeah,
none
it's
of the
played for
Yeah,
laughs.
yeah, no, absolutely.
all of the audio was like clearly. I don't think it was the actors. Like all of their dialogue was like
Dubbed.
dubbed in from I think a different person every time.
I think I said that they're Swedish, but I think they're Finnish.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
could be.
Yeah.
I
But
thought
they're
it
just like, wait a minute, was that cable supposed to be plugged in?
Yeah.
And it's like, see, I'll shoot myself now. I loved it. I thought it was so fun.
It's a lot of fun. They're very goofy,
It
but
kills me that I know that there's people that just blew right past those and didn't pay attention
Oh yeah.
to them at all. 'cause
But it
it's
also
so worth it to watch.
it goes to show what Matt was touching on earlier about just how much there is to it, just how much effort they did put into this
Yeah.
game, and how much
'Cause you can't-
It's clearly a passion project. To a
Right.
degree.
The TV turns on as you get up to it, but like you could just keep going.
You can walk
Like,
away.
You have no,
Yeah.
I think you have to turn some of them on yourself too after that.
There
first
are a
one.
couple,
was a couple, yeah.
where it's like interact.
But regardless, the thing I want to say real quick, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but that's essentially the main plot point of Quantum Break.
Okay.
The game they made after Alan Wake, which was started as an Alan Wake sequel. Microsoft was like, we don't really want to do another game. We want to do like a new IP, but we like your ideas. Can you like morph this into a new IP for us? Mm-hmm. So like again, Microsoft owns the Quantum Break characters and everything, and
Okay.
but that's essentially what's going on. And also the idea of like the quantum suicide and like the different realities and like that's also like one of the main, it's like almost shot for shot one of the main plot points of Control.
Wow.
It's
wild.
it's really crazy how they're able to like, you see it all throughout Alan Wake. The best analogy I can come up with is like elements of storytelling in Remedy games like Echo. And as the Echo goes on, the Echo might like deteriorate a little bit. So it's not always like a direct one-to-one reference, but it's like, you know, here's a slightly different iteration on that idea, and then we'll do like a slightly different iteration and then a slightly different iteration, where you can always see a through line through like these same themes or images or ideas being explored from game to game, and even in like the meta stories within the games themselves. Like a lot of the stuff that was happening in the manuscript pages that you find, and we'll discuss those in a moment, the TV shows, the radio broadcasts, it's either like referencing directly or foreshadowing or having like a weird sort of like allusion to the main story or the meta story within. It's like it's so like it's not just like a blatant like metaphor ever.
No.
It's always a little more artfully done than that.
It feels like everything is part of the world building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything that you encounter, nothing's just there to be there.
Right.
Other than the coffee thermoses.
But they just like,
But
but I guess I'm trying to say it's like they have a real like knack for like doing variations on a theme and repeating an idea in different ways to like really communicate the full breadth of a concept and showing it from different angles.
So wait. What you're saying is that every time you pull the trigger, in another reality, you die?
Yes, of course, but that's completely trivial. There's an infinite number of things that could happen at any moment, and they always do happen somewhere. The point is, this one thing did not happen here.
You're insane, Colvin.
Insane? Insane?
Hey, was this thing supposed to be plugged in? I stumbled on it.
The other thing, as you mentioned, you get introduced to are the radio broadcasts.
yes.
And those are really cool too.
It's interesting because it's like you want to. I mean, it could be me personally, but I wanted to listen to it.
Yeah.
The first one you listen to, you don't. There's no expectation for it to contribute at all to what you're doing. You know what I mean? I just thought it would be a cool thing, and so I
it was a radio
sat there
show, yeah.
and I listened to it, and I was like,
But
okay.
do you think we were like incentivized to listen to it because we met him on the ferry and we knew who he was?
I mean, like, there was a part of me that made that connection in my mind
And he's like, I mean,
that it's going to be the same guy, but and also in my mind, I was just like, this is just a radio.
Yeah.
He's one radio person. I still wasn't in the mindset that I was hoping some of these characters would have more context later in the game, but you hadn't, other than the fact that you were going to run into Stucky in a moment, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You really had no context that any of these characters mattered outside of you just met them.
yeah, that's a good.
So, I mean, I talked to him and I was like, that's probably going to be, this could like feasibly be the last time I talked to him in the
Right.
game. So by the time I got to the radio, I was just like, let's see what it's about.
Right. So the radio broadcasts are basically, it's just like a nighttime kind of call-in show, and he might give a little monologue on what's going on in the area or the evening, or they might have a conversation, like an interview or a
Caller.
caller. And then they always end them by, and here's this song.
Yeah.
And this game has a lot of licensed music. Pretty crazy that they were able to
Surprising.
achieve all that.
Yeah.
The first song that played for me was I don't know if they're always the same exact song or if it
They are.
alternates.
It's very
Oh, yeah,
intentional.
What the hell? That song was weird. Do you guys remember it?
I don't really recall. But
I had to look it up because I thought it was a. Initially, I thought it was a joke song that was produced for the game, which kind of funny that I mentioned that. But I thought it was a joke song that was made for the game to kind of promote the atmosphere and kind of like bring you back into the world because it was just wacky. It was something like it almost sounded like.
I don't think it's the first
Like a
song. I think
carnival,
you're talking about the Nick Cave song, aren't you?
Maybe it was like something like.
I was down.
Yes.
Yeah,
What the
that's
hell?
like the third or fourth song. I
Oh,
think.
okay. I thought that was the first one.
No, that's
So maybe I missed some
it's Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. The
sounds
song
right.
is called. I'll
Daddy-
put the title here.
So it was something like Daddy Chains or something.
I don't think it's called Daddy Chains.
Daddy
no.
Chains.
I think you're fucking wrong.
It probably was. Well, that was the first one that stuck out to me. That I was just like, "What the hell?" But
I do remember in the context of the game, it is like, whoa, that feels weird that this song is playing and it's like fucking, I'm in this weird dark forest and everything's fucked.
Yeah, and then there was I think you have a thread, but there's a David Bowie song. Mm-hmm. What's it called?
there's a couple. Because there's the game ends with Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey. Yeah. How did I fucking forget Space Odyssey when I just talked about 2001: Space
yeah.
Odyssey?
But I guess the question I want to ask is, did you guys stop and listen to the songs for very long?
I would sit there and probably like wait for about 30 seconds. Then it does
Yeah.
follow you for a moment as you walk
Yeah.
away, so I'd continue to kind of hear it. But I
got
never
your Doppler effect
I never
going.
sat there through the whole entire song.
I think it's a really interesting way to score the game.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I mean, because they, at least from my memory, you know what I mean? I didn't listen to it, so I don't remember as much, but they seem to just be kind of like, just old kind of guitar, they seemed like old country western songs usually that would come on afterwards or something to that degree, or some sort of acoustic kind of folky.
I don't know. I think
thing
it was
right
very
afterwards.
varied.
It was
On the
very
radios?
eclectic.
Yeah.
At the end of the radio? Okay.
I thought
yeah.
that as well when I first started, and then like we got to some further tracks, and like there was like a cool, like female fronted like rock kind of punk thing. There was some cool stuff on there.
Yeah,
There
I
was
guess
a lot,
just-
but I didn't stop and listen for very long. I listened
didn't
maybe
pay
a
attention to
verse
all of them.
into a hook maybe.
Okay.
But I like the idea that you can stop and listen to it if you want to. And
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean the songs are very intentionally placed.
Yeah.
And if you do want to stop and analyze the lyrics in relation to that point in the story, you can.
Yeah. Well, because it seems like also a theme with the radio shows that you happen to stumble upon is they're always relevant to whatever's happening. It's either foreshadowing something that will happen to you that you've potentially been worried could happen, but now it's effectively confirming, yeah, you're going to run into some people in these woods. There are these hunters missing. There's, you know what I mean? You heard a dog bark earlier. This dog's been missing. You know, they get the call in.
I think
It's
that's
very interesting.
a perfect time to bring up the collectible manuscript pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
So
you find along
you
the way.
find all throughout the game they're illuminated manuscripts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just,
Very
Just like
bright,
they
large
pop
sheets
right
of
out.
paper.
you can't miss them.
The origin of these, I think it's ambiguous, so I don't want to say one way or another until we get to that point. You're not exactly sure who's typing out these pages, but you pick them up, and Alan reads them out loud, and they serve as supplemental stuff. Like maybe the blurb will be about something that you just experienced, something that's going to happen, or just some other thing that it's like a wild card. You're like, what the hell is that?
So one of the first pages is the title page of the manuscript, and it is
Departure?
Departure by Alan Wake. And he's like,
yes.
that was going to be the title of the next novel I was going to write. The one that he's been
I thought
having
it was-
writer's block on.
I thought it was early on that it was revealed that you became aware because he's constantly narrating. Alan is throughout the whole thing, also
Yeah.
separately from your manuscript pages. And I remember him saying something along the lines of, I didn't remember writing any of these words, but they sounded like my words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
And that was the title of the next book he was going to write.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the pages you find are from Departure. However, there were a couple pages from a Alex Casey story.
Okay.
Did you notice that a couple of the pages were read in a different voice?
I didn't allow him to read through a lot of them. I would speed read it myself and then immediately back out. So I wasn't really
Did
paying
you notice
attention.
that?
I don't think so.
So Alan
also-
Wake wrote a series of books starring Alex Casey.
That's what he's famous for.
Yeah, they're like crime thrillers. not again. I'm getting too deep into the greater lore, but Alan reads all those pages because it's he's reading his own manuscript, except for the pages that are ripped from an Alex Casey book, from an already released Alex Casey book. There's like 2 or 3 pages that you find. They're read in the voice of Alex Casey, who is voiced by what?
How did I not notice that?
It's very subtle. I didn't notice it at first either.
Okay.
It may have just been a detail that just went over your head.
It was voiced by
the voice of Max Payne.
Oh, no kidding. That's cool.
That's
So
super cool.
they did not have the rights to the Max Payne character
No.
at this point. But if you know anything about Max Payne, essentially, Sam Lake, the writer of Alan Wake and Max Payne, is Alan Wake.
And Alex Casey
is Max Payne. And so the idea of being like, yeah, I used to write these detective stories, but I killed them off, and like I'm done. I want to move on, do something else, but I'm stuck. I'm having a hard time. Like that is exactly what happened to Remedy, where they were like, in a way, yeah. And so like they had a very arduous development process between Max Payne 2 and Alan Wake, and Alan Wake was rebuilt from scratch several times, and they like completely, they just had to like keep going back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more connections than that. It gets much deeper, but the thing that I think is crazy is to think about if they had the rights to Max Payne, Alex Casey would have been Max Payne. I truly believe that, because it's the same voice actor, it's the same story, and even the pages that you read are recounting the events of like Max Payne's death.
Are those ones that you can?
basically.
There are some manuscript pages that are locked behind the higher difficulties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are not those.
Really?
Okay. Yeah,
wow.
this is a pretty serious nod to like, hey, it's Max Payne. We just gotta say that.
Interesting. Oh, that's so. I don't want to say obvious, but like it kind of is, but like in a very clever way.
I didn't recognize his voice at first, and I was like, wait a minute. Holy shit. Because I was like, oh, you're making a Max Payne reference. I get it. But then I was like, oh no. That's Max Payne.
There's a ton of, I mean, we'll get into them later, obviously, but it seems like there's a ton of Easter eggs. I'm not as familiar with Max Payne as either of you, I don't think.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay,
I know
but definitely not Matt.
Yeah.
But I'm aware enough to have caught a handful of little things that got sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Where that would have been very cool had they had the licensing.
Yeah.
To really immediately create that, like, these are all the same fucking story. You know what I mean? Kind of all the universes.
And they're all linked in this weird way where it's like Max Payne existed as a fictional work inside of the Alan Wake universe, but the Alan Wake universe itself is like this amorphous thing that is hard to define.
The Control universe also, and so because Control, you said it's like an omnipotence. You're like a government agency. Kind of.
That investigates like paranormal events. So anyway, I thought that was really crazy. Just talking about the manuscript pages that they inserted such a blatant link to the Max Payne stories. Yeah,
mm-hmm. That's super cool.
And so the other thing I do want to ask about is like, what did you think about the manuscript when you like started to realize that everything you were reading was about to come true or had just recently come true?
I was horrified. It was
it was. I thought it was really good at building fear and suspense.
They wrote it so ambiguously. Maybe not ambiguous. What's the opposite of ambiguous? Like
blatantly?
Yeah. Sometimes it'd be like, Alan took his last breath as the gun was pulled. Yeah. You're like, you're like, what's going to be the next part? Or they specifically, like it said the name of characters. It's like,
or it would be like a swarm of bodies was about to come over the, you know what I mean, into Alan's sight. He would Barry, be overwhelmed.
At one point it said that Barry, who's your buddy, it said like him and another character were about to die. And you're just like, Jesus, like, am I going to get to the next room and they're going to actually die in the story?
Oh yeah. It did a really, really good job. I thought it was, like you said, it's a really good way of building tension.
Yeah.
And building that in you.
Out of my way to find more of the I mean, I like searching for secrets in games to begin with. Mm-hmm. Like, I really tried to make sure I could find as many as I could.
Yeah. But on top of adding the suspense, it also helps you prepare to a degree. Like, if you read the manuscript and it's like, Alan was suddenly surrounded. You know what I mean? He was
Yes.
quickly from every angle they were coming. You can be like, okay, I'm going to save my flares. You know what I mean? I'm not going to waste my flashbangs. I'm going to keep, I'm going to pick up ammo if I see it rather than maybe being like, I've got plenty. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to mentally too prepare for it.
I think that it was maybe the best implementation of like collectible lore.
I've never experienced something like it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things about Alan Wake that right away I was like, the combat mechanics, even though it's Luigi's Mansion, you know what I mean, for gamers,
for big boys.
kind of. But I had never played a game where I've played shooters, I've played third-person shooters, you know what I mean. I've played survival horrors, but like it was super unique. It was very cool. And then like you said with the collectibles, I'd never experienced something where like in Skyrim and in Elder Scrolls and in Fallout games, obviously it's world building, but
There's
it's lore
there's
building.
one or two quests where you find something that you're like that informs you the way Alan Wake
Exactly.
does. Like the whole
They're more universe
out of like
and
the fucking
lore
300
building.
quests in a Skyrim game.
Yeah.
And almost all of those are what's the term? It's humously.
Yeah.
Where it's like usually you find like the notes
It's history.
of like there's a cave that was invaded by monsters, and then you find letters of like who the people were that were there.
Yeah.
In this game, it tells you what the future is and like some other outsider stuff.
Yeah,
I'd never experienced that.
I've never seen it so much where I was like, okay, yeah, I want to dick around and explore, but like, it does aid and inform the player in a way that I just...
It's done so well.
Because collectible little lore writings are like so standard in so many modern games, and like sometimes it's like, hey, that was kind of neat.
Especially in games we've all played through recently, like in the Resident Evil games and the Evil Within games. It's like, Evil Within, I guess, is kind of, the first one is similar in the sense that it's telling you, it's giving you context for what you're doing.
Yeah, but it didn't
But it's
help me.
never, no, it doesn't, it's not helpful at all. It's helpful for understanding, like you personally to understand the game.
Yeah.
It's not helpful in the game.
It doesn't propel the story
No,
forward.
it
Whereas
doesn't.
this, like, it helped to keep me like even more engaged.
Oh,
in
it's
the
like
story.
integral to the gameplay, it feels like. Yeah, it's super, super cool.
Really crazy that was able to work that way for such a fucking like overused mechanic in other games.
Absolutely.
I'd say Prey did that very well too, but not in really a way that was going to predict the future.
Yeah.
Like it would just tell you like, you could piece things together to go find something that you need to go do this other thing. But yeah, most of them are just like additional supplemental stuff.
And it's consistent throughout the entire game too.
Yeah.
It's not just like it's impressive they were able to keep it up, because I could see doing it once or twice, as many games do once or twice, kind of pull that off. But
Yeah.
so
Because you could have
consistently.
you could have just found a couple that were like, get ready for this coming up, and then the rest were just like old. They could have all been Alex Casey, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
stories or whatever that you're just reading to get context on Alan as a writer.
Right.
Very cool mechanic.
So wrapping up this first chapter, you get to the Charles Stuckey battle. What did you guys think of like all the possessed, the Taken they're called, I believe, the Taken, who are the townsfolk who have been taken over by the Dark Presence? They all like are just like talking.
Yeah, I kind of like
that's
it
right.
though.
I loved it.
It's the latest thing! Two birds? Incontestably proven!
It was as if their brain was taken over. They still like hung on to a few bits of information.
Make sure to wear eye protection
Yeah,
when
they're all-
sawing things.
They're all like related to whatever their job is, you know what I mean? Like
Largely, but there's like the guy who's like omega-3 fatty acids are good for your heart.
right, yeah. It's like things that are like so ingrained in their memory that they have to stuck is you forgot your keys, Alan, you know what I mean? And he's like
Yeah, there's really cool like pitch modulation on their voice that sounds really scary and cool.
Yeah. I think we spoke about this a bit before we started shooting, but when you actually battle Stuckey, and he's like the first boss essentially, you are like, holy shit, did I just kill that guy?
Yeah, you
and
do
it's
not know.
it's in that specific scenario because you do find manuscripts describing what happens to Stuckey before and after you interact with him. You know what I mean? It still does not clear up. He's for sure not around. He's missing. No one knows where he is.
He's missing, and you eventually do make your way to Stuckey's gas station.
Yeah.
and it's been broken into.
Ransacked.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
An important part that we mentioned earlier is as you're making your way up to it, you notice that there's the Deer Fest that's going to be happening in Bright Falls, and it's like a very large yearly annual thing that happens. And as you get into the gas station after seeing that sign, Alan's like, he has this inner monologue where he's like, did I kill that guy? Like, what am I gonna do? What's going on with everybody? So you don't know if you're literally just murdering people.
And I could be wrong, but I don't know that it's ever cleared up.
It's not entirely cleared up until the very end of the game. We'll speak on some of that eventually, but even then, it's not. I wouldn't say it's entirely cleared up, but you are filled with this like sense of dread where there's this really fine balance between the supernatural and just the actual world that you're in, where you're like, okay, yeah, he was like a shadow monster, but also I think I just killed him.
You think
I just killed that man. And when the police come, because you call the police, you're like, I've been in an accident, I need help.
Yeah, sheriff gets there right away.
Yeah,
Sheriff Sarah Breaker is like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like
at this gas station where the owner is missing.
Clearly been broken into.
Yeah.
And you're like, I was at the cabin on Cauldron Lake, and she's like, there is no cabin.
There is no
cabin on Cauldron Lake?
cabin.
No.
That was that was a mic drop on me. When she told me that there was no cabin, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That was a big moment.
The game is really good at giving you those moments of like propelling you forward into the unknown. And every time you think you get like your footing, it's like, no.
Yeah. Every time you think you're starting to like, oh, I'm getting close to the answer. I'm getting close to the truth. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to figure out what's going on. It's like, no, you don't. You don't know what's going on, really. And that moment in particular for me was, I like to try to figure stuff out. You know what I mean? Pretty like when I'm watching movies or anything, I like to try to figure out the story. And in this, it was really hard for me. I think I mentioned it to you, and I included it in my notes, but I was like, was the first Night Springs video about quantum different realities and stuff like that, and quantum realities, is that what this game is about?
Oh, I see.
Is Alan Wake just a crazy man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or is this some supernatural thing going on?
Is what he's actually observing reality?
Is it a delusion? Or is everybody in this, wild shit happening?
And that's a theme for the entire game.
And it's hard they really do a good job of making you question that the whole time. In the same way it seems that Alan is throughout the game. You know?
Yeah. And so that's the end of chapter 1. Now we move on to chapter 2. Episode 2. Fuck my ass. They're episodes. They're not chapters. They're episodes of a TV show. And
but it's all about books.
At the end of
what?
At the end of every episode, when a new episode begins, they do the last time on Alan Wake.
Yeah.
And give you the episodic breakdown, which is really helpful when you're trying to make sense of such a convoluted story.
Yeah, especially if you're playing multiple game sessions. And Jordan, I want to know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But anytime you pause the game, it gives you a little blurb about what's going on. And
That's what I just said.
Yes, super helpful.
What?
I just said that.
You said when you pause it as well?
Oh, when you pause it.
Yeah, when you pause the game, there's a little blurb that's like, Alan, what's
it says your motivation.
Yeah, it's basically your current quest.
Yeah,
yes.
and that's very helpful.
No, I just, because obviously this is the first time where they go previous on Alan Wake, and it fucked me up because I skipped it. Because I said, I just played it, you know what I mean? I just played right through chapter 1. And then episode 2 opens, as we all know, in your house. You're back in your apartment.
Yeah, it's a
and
flashback.
I was like, what is this game? I'm like, I fall in a lake, I wake up in a car. You know what I mean? I'm like, I go to a gas station, I hop in the sheriff's car, I wake up in my house a year ago.
What the
I'm like,
heck?
what? I was so lost for a
And
moment.
you're in New York City.
I'm going to give a quick recap of what happens in episode 2.
Yes.
And for those wondering, episode 2 is called Taken. So Sheriff Breaker has taken Alan into the local police station to get checked out by Dr. Nelson, who is the local doctor. Before the sheriff can further question Alan, he gets a phone call from a man who claims to have kidnapped Alan's wife. The kidnapper tells Alan to meet him at midnight at a spot called Lover's Point. Alan decides he needs to leave the police station immediately, but is interrupted when he runs into Dr. Emil Hartman, the very doctor who Alice had mentioned to Alan back in the cabin. Alan punches Hartman out, and the whole scuffle gets broken up by the appearance of Alan's agent, Barry Wheeler. Alan and Barry leave the police station and head toward Lover's Point. Alan ultimately makes the trip alone and leaves Barry in a nearby cabin. Alan meets the kidnapper, who says that he will not give Alice back until Alan gives him the manuscript for the novel Departure. The issue is that Alan has been finding the pages of the manuscript all over Bright Falls, has no memory of writing them, and does not have the full manuscript. The kidnapper is surprised to learn that the manuscript is unfinished and gives Alan 2 days to wrap it up. Did you notice that he was like, it's not finished yet? Like,
Yeah.
It seemed like he like expected it to have been done.
Yeah.
That struck me as like, all right, there's something more going on here. Because like, the kidnapper knows about the manuscript. That's weird. But also like, seems to like have already had his own established idea of what it even was.
I think we have to
Yeah.
be very careful in talking about this because your perception of it as you experience it for the first time, much different than how you think about it in retrospect after you know everything.
Right. So basically, he's kidnapped Alice. But before we even get into all that, much like the first chapter, it doesn't just open up with the story. It opens up with a flashback, like you said. You're back
Yeah.
at your apartment.
To your apartment.
Yes,
Your
with
beautiful-
Alice.
Beautiful New York City apartment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, very expensive, probably loft.
Very shitty art on the walls, though.
Oh yeah,
Very
really
bad
bad art.
Like really, really,
but
really
a
bad
couple
art.
of Easter eggs in there too in the apartment as
Yes.
you explore around, which you're probably a little bit more aware of what.
So
they
there was
were.
the twin, the
golden
golden
guns,
guns,
yeah.
which
What
are
was that?
Max Payne's guns.
Oh, okay. I knew that was significant.
It's like his twin Berettas or whatever that
Yeah.
he uses.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew they were screaming at me, but I didn't know.
They
what
like
were.
they have like such a sheen on them that looked like you could pick them up.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
a frame too, and
Yeah.
it's like
It's the loudest part of the entire. It was the loudest part of the entire apartment.
You also see on the bookshelf there all the previous Alex Casey books,
Yes.
and the Alex Casey, the titles are referenced to like chapters in Max Payne.
oh okay,
I read them
that's
all,
cool.
but I didn't understand the significance.
That's why I didn't. That's why I was like, you'll know more.
Yeah.
You'll have more context.
I
I like- did you
really
guys go to
loved
the
it.
Did you guys go to the bathroom?
I went to the bathroom. Yeah,
There's a big dookie in the toilet.
I didn't.
Was there?
No, there wasn't.
Oh, I was like, that would be hilarious.
I've been making a list of the top 10 toilets in gaming.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
good.
definitely on that list. So
You gotta
I
include
made
the-
sure to.
Majora's Mask toilet.
Is there a toilet in there?
Just a note.
All right.
Thank you. I'll remember that for later. The other Max Payne reference that was really cool was the painkillers and in the medicine cabinet.
That one
That's
was
like a
went right
direct
over
Max
my
Payne
head.
reference as well.
okay.
So yeah, so basically like this was really cool because it did break up the gameplay entirely. Like it didn't feel like any other part of the game at that point.
No.
You're walking around talking to your wife, and the lights go out. There's a power outage.
You scramble to find the flashlight, I believe,
Yeah.
or candles or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
flip the breaker.
You gotta get
flip
to
the breaker, yes,
Because Alice is losing her shit, even though she's in a pretty well lit built like room in the house.
It's not evening. It's not like nighttime. It's not pitch black
It's
outside.
not black. Also, New York
I-
City is never dark.
I think it goes to show how irrational and extreme her phobia is.
Yes.
very
Oh,
afraid of
yeah.
that.
It's definitely just trying to cement that in the fear of the dark.
And
so
so,
while she's screaming, you flick on the lights.
no,
You know all the power's out, right? It
it's a
doesn't
power
work.
outage. Yeah,
So you grab. It goes into a cinematic, right? And
I can tell you what it's going to be instead of you trying to fish for
I
it.
continue. I prefer to keep guessing.
Okay. So he says, no worries, we'll put some candles on.
Yep.
And so they're canoodling on the couch, and he says, hey, I got something that'll help you. It was given to me when I was a kid because I was afraid of the dark. It's something my mom gave me called the clicker, and it's a little light switch.
Yeah, like a very old style
It's
light
like
switch.
an
though.
inline, like it'd be the how you turn on like a lava lamp. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got the wires loose, the connections. It's something you would just, put into a wall like that.
Yeah.
And it clicks. And he was saying, when I was a kid, I would click it and all the scary monsters would vanish. And, you can keep this to help you.
And Alice is like, you're full of shit. You're just a writer.
Yeah,
you
she's
made it up. This isn't real. No one gave this to you.
But I love it anyway. It's a very tender moment.
It is. Yeah, maybe the last tender moment.
And then all of her skin falls off.
No, but he gives her the clicker, and it's a very like sweet gesture, Then you come out of that to realize you are being checked out by the doctor,
Yeah.
Dr. Nelson, at the sheriff's department, and like I said,
The good doctor.
the good doctor.
The good
Mm-hmm.
doctor.
Uh,
And he's
So-
like, he says, "Oh, you're just kind of fucked up. Well, I gotta go fishing."
so he
Yeah.
he lies about his head trauma.
And I think he's terrified. He's still not at a point where, as far as he's concerned, he's the only one experiencing all of this so far.
Yes.
That's important to know. So what did you guys think of just like real quick this whole little area, like the police station, basically?
That was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
A lot of little Easter eggs to check out.
I'm worried I might be. It's not that important. It's not like a plot point. But is this the time when you get to interact with the guy like in the drunk tank?
Yep.
Yes.
And he's like, "Please turn the lights back on. I'm
Yeah.
begging you, please." That
That's
was
the first clue.
that was my first inkling that I'm like, it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
This is potentially...
But also,
you
he's
look,
just drunk.
He is just hammered, but then
just- yeah.
in that moment, I thought back to the
More
woman I
light.
dismissed as insane in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
She's there.
Yeah, she's also there, checking all the light bulbs.
And they're all like, she's crazy.
Yeah, but now you're like, okay, this crazy woman and this drunk are both like, oh, stay away from the darkness. Please turn the lights on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you're like, are they both crazy drunks, or is this one of those scenarios where it's like those are the people who see the real side of the world? You know what I
maybe
mean?
you
Like,
need to be crazy to understand what's happening.
to accept it and be like, this isn't just me hallucinating, and be like, this is real, and I need to keep these fucking lights on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You have to be insane to think that.
As you're leaving the police department, like Alan, you mentioned that he took that phone call from the kidnapper, and he gives like a bogus reason as to why he needs to leave to the police department. And I'm just thinking, like, if he wasn't a celebrity writer, and then there's another element here. I'm like, there's absolutely no way this man would not be in jail.
Well, they didn't have any, because I don't think he gave a bogus reason. I think he's like, am I under arrest? No,
Yeah.
then I'm leaving.
Yeah,
Because they didn't have any.
They have no evidence.
They have nothing to get him
They
in on because
don't,
they don't know where his wife is or if she's even missing. Really,
That happens all the
missing
time,
wife thing.
but like it would be like, okay, we can't hold him, but we are going to track him.
Yeah, yeah.
I just thought the sheriff seemed very laid back about the whole scenario to a degree. She was kind of like, I'm
She
just
seemed
trying to.
overwhelmed almost.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, then maybe that was what I was picking
to
up.
me, it
there's
just seemed like
something-
she was like, I like, because even when he like punched out
The
Hartman,
doctor, yeah.
Hartman's like, oh, it's okay, and like he clearly broke his nose.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to press charges, Sarah. It's okay.
But she was just like, oh,
Yeah, that's true. She seems like she's kind of like,
We
this
learned
is a
something
lot of
small
us.
town
We
though.
learned something about her later that I think informed some of her interactions with Alan, but we'll get to that.
But so you escaped.
She had her nose broken as a child by a man
by
who
Dr.
punched her.
Hartman.
By Alan Wake.
I don't know what you'd call this area that you were in. It was almost like a visitor center for the.
Yeah, it's
for
like
it's a national park.
It's like the wild lake. If you go hiking anywhere in the area in the Adirondacks,
Yeah, okay.
it's like the welcome
Nature-
center.
nature
Yeah,
You can call the
trail.
welcome center
The
at the
welcome
visitors
center,
lodge.
that's what it is. So you are getting a cabin near Lover's Peak,
Yes.
so you can go meet the kidnapper. So you have to meet the park ranger at the welcome center to get the keys, and he's like mending a dog's leg who got caught in a bear trap.
Who may have been the dog mentioned in the radio show from the previous evening in the woods.
May have been, and also it lets you know that there's hunters and trappers out in the woods,
All over.
Yeah.
and you do eventually encounter
Hunters and trappers.
and bear traps on the
Bear
ground,
traps,
which
yeah.
I didn't need to, but I just wound up like popping them all because I was just enjoying
can
doing
shoot
it.
'em?
I
I
did.
didn't know you could
Oh,
shoot
okay.
them.
I didn't know
just
that either.
avoided all of them.
It was those are to me like the dark spots where I just really tried to avoid them. You know what I mean?
It's funny that they look like pages when you first encounter
Oh
them.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
the
they
first
do.
one I
Did you
absolutely
get it?
stepped on because
I did too. I was
I was
like,
like,
oh,
a
yeah.
manuscript page and sprinted into it, and then you're trapped, and immediately a guy's coming at you.
That's the other thing. So you have to tap A to release the trap.
Yeah.
But as soon as you like get in the trap, it like
Triggers an enemy. Yeah.
which is so fucking cool because you're just like.
because you're vulnerable.
then
And now it's
also-
like you fucked up, you double fucked up.
That's scary.
You know
Whenever
what I mean?
there's like
I
an
don't think I ever
enemy
stepped in
like
No.
spawning when they first spawn, there's like a string like.
And like,
It's like a shrill.
a lot of the time it'll, not every time I've noticed, but some of the time it'll slow down and perspective changes to suddenly you're from the perspective of the enemy coming at
Oh,
you.
Right, so you
Yes,
get to see all
almost.
the angles they're coming from.
Yes, which I thought that was cool every
That's
time.
really helpful because again, I've said it before, but you're always like swarmed or flanked by the enemies. So it's nice that they give you that little, here's a little bird's eye view almost of like
Yes.
where they're coming at, and
Because then you
now
can see
you're
the
in the
other
darkness.
ones behind
Yeah.
you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Another thing I'd like to touch on real quick before we continue on is on the ride over to the visitor center, this is when you first reveal to Barry, you open up to Barry about everything
Yeah.
that's going on so far. You
noted
know,
that, yeah.
and Barry's like, I think you're crazy, Al, but I'll listen. You know what I mean? I'll give you a chance because you're his cash cow, effectively.
Yeah, but
It shows
seems
how
to
greedy
me.
Barry is. That He's
Exactly.
like willing to like basically like harbor a murderer,
And support this man's potential delusion if you might write another book for him.
and Alan Wake mentions that he has the manuscript pages, and it's like that was enough for Barry to stay on board no matter what.
I don't think you're wrong, but at the same time, I do remember it saying that like Alan and Barry were best friends. Like Alan didn't have any other friends.
No, but I don't know if that's so much a matter of Barry being a great guy or if it's Alan's a pile of shit. so he's pushed everyone else away, but Barry can still make money off of him. So he's
That's
willing
more-
to put up with
I,
it.
I do think they have a bond
Oh, undoubtedly.
through that, but it does seem like the bond wouldn't be until after the events of this game, maybe where they were able to bond through trauma. I don't know if like their connection was enough to keep them tight if Alan wasn't making money.
Yeah,
Okay, fair
I
enough.
agree.
Yeah, so you are essentially just making your way up to
Lover's Peak.
Lover's Peak to meet the kidnapper.
This is also the first time you drive a car. Is in the.
So you guys kept saying like the driving was weird, and I was like, no, it wasn't. It was fine. And then so in replaying the game last night,
Okay, I was hoping you would.
if you tap the right control stick to change the camera, it's almost like, you know, when you can like in driving games you can like change the camera view to look behind you.
But you usually have to hit a button. You're hitting like
Right.
left or right bumper.
But it doesn't even do that. It doesn't even, it just kind of like does like a wild swing.
Yeah.
Sometimes behind you, sometimes to your side.
And then immediately
don't
flips
know.
back unless
it's-
you hold it there, and
and
it's
it's never useful.
No, not at all. I don't
Never.
know what was going on there.
Another
It is
fun fact
the
about driving.
worst part of the game, I'd say, in terms of design and
Yeah,
control.
it was the one part where I thought it feels like they didn't do this.
Yeah.
It feels like in the when the test and the playthroughs or whatever, they didn't.
Does
They
not
never
seem
used the right
like
stick
intentional.
while they
I
were driving.
almost wonder if that's a PC port issue, if that's on the Xbox version as well, because like that
Oh, okay, that could be. That's a
that
fair point.
really fucking
It's
sucked.
really
Maybe
jarring.
implementing the fix for that somehow just crashed the game, and they're like, we got to send it like this. What do we do?
I also
This is the perfect time to mention, don't play this game with a mouse and keyboard.
no,
Don't do it.
not
It
very.
seems like
it's
it would-
not built for it.
It seems like it would make sense because you have to aim precisely. It's terrible. Use a controller.
Yeah, it's not built
It's
for it.
optimized as best as it can be, but don't do it. Anyway.
I didn't realize you could boost your headlights until I was playing through the second DLC.
Oh my god,
Oh
really?
damn!
Yeah, I was just driving around.
What the
I was
fuck?
backing up a lot, pulling a lot of donuts to
You can
avoid-
boost your headlights just like you would focus your
flashlight.
flashlight.
Yeah.
which was a cool mechanic, but I wasn't aware of it. I'm sure I read it and then immediately forgot by the next time I had to use a.
There was a couple
vehicle in
moments where
combat.
like there was adrenaline rushes where you're like you can't like think
Yeah.
about all the things that you're learning at the same time.
I kind of do enjoy the, you know, flashing the Taken with the headlights and then just running them over.
Yeah,
it's
that was
very
very
satisfying.
That was very good,
satisfying.
So when you do finally reach Lover's Peak, you just kind of are going through the woods. It's very similar to the previous thing in the game.
Yeah,
where you're
absolutely.
going through the woods to get to the place you're trying to get to.
Which it's a theme in the combat mechanics, is that it seems like they always kind of follow they change the scenery for like bigger events, but like the general just running through gameplay seems to be pretty similar throughout most of it, and I felt.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have daytime sections that develop the story and the narrative, and then you have nighttime sections that propel you toward the next plot point in the story, but are the sort of combat areas,
Yeah.
essentially. And there's opportunity for exploration during those nighttime combat areas, but not, I wouldn't say as much as there are in the daytime areas, you know?
Because it doesn't horribly punish you for that exploration during the nighttime combat, but it does absolutely punish you.
Because it does, and there are things to find.
Yeah, but they
here
will
and there.
spawn enemies. The more time you just putter around.
One thing I liked is if because I did get lost in the forest a couple times.
Yeah, it's easy.
You know you're getting lost because the further you are from where you're supposed to be, the more distorted the environment
Yeah,
becomes.
and
Yeah,
it starts getting darker and darker, and the voices and like the
All the
all of
effects
that.
of the dark presence become like really apparent, and it will like kind of like crescendo to the point that it'll trigger enemies to spawn. And then you can kind of like, you can always kind of look for light and find your way back to where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
But it is kind of similar just to getting lost
it
in
gets
the woods.
disorienting sometimes. You do feel like you're lost in the dark.
Maybe there's times that you don't have it, but in the upper left you have a radar that's constantly telling you where to go.
Yes.
Oh, I turned my HUD off, so I didn't know
Oh,
that.
you turned your HUD off?
Oh.
I turned my HUD off on
Yeah.
this most recent playthrough because I was capturing footage.
Okay.
And I I've beaten the game already, but I was doing, just a brush up on the game yesterday. So I played with the trainer and gave myself infinite ammo, infinite stamina, infinite health, infinite dick, which Alice appreciated. And
She could use it.
yeah,
That poor girl.
so I completely
dick
forgot
race.
about the
The radar.
compass
Yeah.
because
Well,
it was awesome to play the game with no HUD. It looked
Yeah.
great.
I bet so, because like you don't like there's not a lot of RPG elements. Like it's not like your health is the same throughout the entire game.
And it's also
That's
clear
fine.
when you're dying because it starts to.
You can only take on normal difficulty 2 or 3 hits. You're a human.
Yeah.
Like you can't get hit by an axe 3 times. And, you know,
That's pretty much it. It's over.
which I always thought was really fair. So you could realistically play that game with no HUD and have like a pretty good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to maybe pay
Because
attention.
the light
you have
does
to count your bullets.
The light
Yeah.
does guide you everywhere you go.
Right.
However,
And light heals you. Anytime you're low on health and you come to like a street lamp or anything like that, and you're in a light area, refills your health.
yes.
So
I was gonna say, continuing on though, you're heading to the top of Lover's Peak.
so you meet
The kidnapper.
the kidnapper, and you don't know he's the kidnapper at first.
No, you
No.
think he's a guy.
He's just a guy who you are swarmed. You drop your flashlight, and it looks like this could be the end of Alan Wake.
It's important to mention, I think, at this point, every now and then you find those little secret caches of
you are finding the caches throughout the
there's-
yellow paint.
Right? Yeah. So there's
find-
iridescent like yellow
Paint.
markers. Like you'll see arrows or
Yeah.
messages sometimes, but also
They
arrows
usually-
pointing you
they
off
lead you
the
to a
beaten
little
path.
little treasure
Some sort of
box with
supply,
some gear.
And they all have like a little symbol above the caches.
Yes.
a torch,
But let's-
a torch or like a match.
It looks almost like a lantern.
Yeah.
But let's put a pin in that.
Yes, but I mentioned that because when I first meet the kidnapper, you're like, "Is this a guy? Is this the guy that's been leading all
Oh,
this
absolutely. Yeah,
stuff?"
no, I had that thought as well. Yeah.
Because he's like that flashlight's kid stuff, and he like pulls out a fucking road flare.
My
Yeah.
like third note I made for this game is that I said that using the flashlight to defeat darkness is like some pajama Sam shit. And I was so happy that the game acknowledged it. It's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was so happy when he said that.
So he
Good shit. Here's
he
a
basically
torch.
gives you a bunch of flares, and you don't have your gun, you don't have
No.
your flashlight. Oh, you do have a flashlight, but you don't have a
have your
gun anymore.
flashlight,
You,
yeah.
you drop your gun.
He has the
has a
revolver,
gun.
yeah.
So this is an interesting sort of like forced co-op thing with the AI.
Yeah.
And you are setting up the enemies to be taken out by
Okay, yeah.
the kidnapper, who
He also has a flashlight though, I believe.
he does.
So he's also kind of doing it, but not quite as well.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
mostly like you each have a role.
But he's like, I thought that was great.
I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah, I really
get it.
did.
That was probably my least favorite section of gameplay
No kidding, really.
in the entire game.
I
yeah,
appreciate that it was so short.
Yeah, I did, and I think it's also the first time I died,
Ah,
and it was the first time I died multiple times in a row.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
it was a little bit difficult. You do eventually hit like a siege area where you have like a
Yeah.
2 or 3 minute just like constant pour of enemies.
I thought it was cool.
and it's one of those things where we talked about it the other day, but you really do have to strategize. You have to come up with a game plan.
Yeah.
And you have to time it and you have to remember it. It took me, I died 3 times, I believe, before I was like, okay, I have to actually pay
what
attention.
the fuck?
But it was frustrating, excuse me, relinquishing control.
Yeah.
It was frustrating being like, I have to rely on this AI now to murder these things. And even outside of it being an AI, but I have to rely on this guy who, I don't even fucking know who this is.
Right.
He's the hunter from the ferry, clearly. Like, I recognize him from that.
Yep.
Other than that, though, I have no context. I'm like, maybe he's the kidnapper because he's in the place where he said he was going to be,
Right.
but he's not acting like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so-
Because you're not quite yet to Lover's Peak when you meet him.
No, you're not. And I didn't like that at all. That was not a fun
That's fair.
spot for me.
I could see getting unlucky and just not syncing up with the AI.
Yeah, that was the main thing that frustrated me was the moments where it was clearly I was like, I'm not doing anything wrong. You
Yeah,
know what I
you
mean?
just
But
wasn't
clearly I
blasting.
was. But I don't know.
It was great for me.
You did mention he was on the ferry at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
That was a cool little connection to make.
Damn yuppies.
No, he just like talks shit about people from the city,
So
which is something we're used to.
he does bring you to Lover's Peak, and he's like, well, all right, here we are, man. So
Yeah.
I want the manuscript. And you're
Yeah.
like, where's Alice? And he's like, give me the manuscript, I'll give you Alice. And then you're like, you bitch! And you punch him, and you guys like both tumble off of a cliff, and basically
Yeah.
like he escapes, and you find his gun. You have your flashlight, so you're equipped again, but you're like, fuck.
Now what?
I don't have the manuscript, and I don't have Alice, and Barry's freaking out because the cabin is covered in
Oh,
birds.
It's being
He's called you.
swarmed. It's an
Very-
Alfred Hitchcock scenario.
Yeah,
but
so-
somewhere along the way, Barry calls you and he's like, oh shit, you're not like I'm.
You're not crazy. You got to get back.
That was awesome. You never see that. You never see somebody actually believing the main guy.
And-
So that was so cool.
As you're making your way back through, you also do encounter the park ranger again.
Yeah,
You do, but
Uh-huh.
he's
And this is-
damaged. He's not okay.
That's when you. I think we're skipping. You have to make your way back to the cabin.
Yeah.
Yes, and so when you get back to the cabin, is when you, or no. When do you encounter the park ranger?
I think
Grab Barry.
I think you are in the right spot.
yeah,
is it before or after Bear?
Because Barry's the last thing that happens
Okay,
there.
so you go to the welcome center, then the lodge.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's kind of on your
Then
way,
the
I
cabin,
believe.
I should say. Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
Isn't
I
it?
apologize. I'm having a hard time remembering timeline right here, because I thought you went and you go to the welcome center because you find Barry's car as you come back, go up to the welcome center, run into what Matt just saw, and then you proceed to go to your cabin where Barry is.
Yeah.
Yes, my bad.
All right.
Just derailed.
So, on your way back to Barry, you do pass through the welcome center, and you see that it is like wrecked,
Yeah, ransacked.
and the park ranger is dying.
Oh, yeah.
And he like saw the dark presence, and you see just like a trail of blood, like smeared all through the welcome center, and a fucking hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, dude, there's like a giant at this point, I was like, I thought there was going to be a giant monster, or like a demon.
And they're
bear or
effectively,
something.
because my recollection of it is, it seems as though the dark presence comes from the mammoth skeleton that's in the welcome center. So suddenly, and then
no
that
kidding. Did that
barrels
come alive?
through the wall. You know what I mean? I don't believe it took the
Oh, it just
fossil didn't
possessed
come
it.
alive, but it was just like the dark presence was the size of the mammoth
Yeah.
and came from it. You know what I mean?
So that's like the first point I think between him and Barry, where
Yeah.
like two people confirm, no, this is really happening
Yeah.
to us as well.
It's not a
Also,
delusion.
and we're seeing it.
Like, we'll touch on it real quick. The mammoth has a backstory that you can read about. You guys reading it?
I love that.
He's
Everything does. You can read the
It's
placard.
called like Big Tooth Charlie or something. He's like
believe
the
so.
he's like the mascot of the town.
Yeah.
Like God. Anyway.
There's a lot of lore.
Yeah.
So when you get back eventually to Barry, there's the second boss battle, which is like a giant swarm of birds.
You want to talk about the part that you hated about the game?
Yeah.
the most? Fuck the birds, dude. I hated dealing with the birds.
There's another part where you encounter lots of birds as well, and I thought I would do better at that. Just throughout the entire game, the birds come, and it's basically just like a giant swarm of like small enemies that you can take out with your flashlight individually, but they come in like a big flock, and they all like they
just
you get a
dive
heads
on
up where they're coming, and they dive at you.
the heads up
I
is so short.
always fucked it up.
Me too.
To the point where like even there were times later in the game where I was like hitting them and then getting hit from behind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
well,
like-
because it's an issue I think I ran into a lot in combat in general, with the birds especially, like you said, because
struggled with
you have a hard time keeping track. It'll show you where one's coming from, and you're like, okay, cool. So then you turn to that one, but they hadn't alerted you of
The other one.
the other group that started going just before that one that's
Yeah.
directly behind you.
It's one of the low points in the design for me where I felt like I was getting hit with like cheap shots, where it's like any other times with the hunters, like you have enough time to, even if you don't know where they are, you can quickly turn around and scan your environment.
Yeah.
And with this, that you don't have the time to react. And so this was like, on my first playthrough especially, one of the most difficult parts of the game, and not necessarily because it was that hard, but just because it was like so cheap.
I found a quick workaround for that though, because if you have flares anytime you encounter the birds, I just immediately flare out.
The
And I'm holding a
flares will
flare
help, and that's
pretty
what you're
much.
supposed to do. But
Yeah.
if you ever don't have flares,
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah. In
Fuck.
addition, if you have the flare gun, like I didn't use the flare gun a ton except for like large enemies, but if you shoot a flare gun at the birds, it kills the entire flock.
it does, yeah.
And like I just like only use the flare gun for that, so I'd always save my ammo because the birds, man, I just kept saying fuck the birds.
Fuck birds.
yeah,
They're not even real.
worst boss in the
cameras.
game, the bird boss.
sure.
Oh, hands down.
Moving on to chapter 3. Moving on to the third episode, Ransom. Barry receives a call from Rose, the waitress from the local diner. She claims to have found the rest of Alan's manuscript. However, upon arriving at Alice's home, Alan and Barry are drugged, and they pass out for a full day. We learn that Rose was under the control of the same dark presence that has been taking over the other parts of the town. Alan wakes up and attempts to get back on track with his obligations to the kidnapper, but is unexpectedly confronted by FBI agent Robert Nightingale. Alan suddenly becomes a fugitive and escapes into the woods, working his way toward the coal mine where he's supposed to meet the kidnapper. The kidnapper does not show up at the coal mine and instead calls Wake and tells him to meet him later that night on a lookout point on a nearby mountain called Mirror Peak. Alan finally meets with the kidnapper that night, who admits to Alan that he never had his wife and that the whole thing was a desperate attempt to get Alan to cooperate with the Dark Presence. The Dark Presence then consumes the kidnapper, and Alan falls into a nearby body of water.
Very straightforward storytelling.
Yeah.
Cut and dry.
It's not like you can't comprehend it. I'm just saying a lot happens, and like Jordan, like you mentioned a second ago in the thing that we cut out, it is very twisty-turny.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you don't expect. A lot
Right.
of subverted expectations.
So this opens up daytime, another one of the kind of slower paced, like storytelling sections of the game, and you're at the trailer park where Rose lives.
You're being led through by the park manager.
Yeah, he's
just
the guy
a
who's the owner.
supervisor.
Yeah. And
Who's
so
like the most country guy I've ever seen in my life.
he's like missing a leg or something, or he's got like
He's got a fake leg.
Yeah.
a
He
peg
got a
leg. I
funny
think.
walk.
I love this character.
I liked him
Oh,
a
it's
lot.
very good. Yeah, all the characters are so fleshed out, and it's as you walk through the trailer park, he points out that crazy storm last night. Boat just dropped in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's not like a rowboat. It's
not a
This is
kayak.
a 20-foot sailboat.
Like,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like right in the dead
Steel,
center.
like metal boat.
Yeah,
Like it's not like a
bigger than the trailers it's fallen near.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Plopped.
just real casual, as though it seems like this
No big
might
deal.
kind of happen normally.
Yeah.
This might be
Yeah.
something that has happened
Crazy
before
storm.
around town.
Yeah,
know?
people are just kind of like used to extreme, bizarre circumstances.
Wild
and it's
shit,
like, all
yeah.
right, yeah, hey, crazy, but it happened. So you get drugged by Rose. You realize that
poisons your
Rose
coffee.
is being controlled by the Dark Presence and in particular manipulated by the same woman who gave you the keys to the cabin in the first chapter of the game.
And I feel like had were Alan and Barry not such self-absorbed assholes,
They would have noticed
they
that.
would have noticed pretty immediately.
Yeah, I felt
But they're
bad.
being very dismissive with Rose the whole time.
Yeah.
And they're very much just like, I'm here to get in, get out, give me that fucking manuscript.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they look at her as a lesser person, and that's kind of their downfall.
Yeah. which
Yeah,
is
In this
exciting.
scene.
because she's like, "Hey, Alan."
Yeah,
And
she's
he's like,
so
hey, Rose,
catatonic.
what's going on?
Yeah,
Like,
he's like,
where's
"Come
the
on, we gotta
fucking,
go."
where are the pages? Come on.
And then, like,
Like a drink.
she's talking, and he's like, she doesn't have it. And like,
Yeah.
like not even talking to her, but talking about her.
Yeah,
Too
she's
Barry.
not,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
not there.
As though she's not a real person to them.
Yeah. So Alan falls asleep, and he wakes up. He's like, I lost a whole day.
And this is still when he's trying to finish the manuscript for for the kidnapper. No, that
He's trying to
Yeah.
find all the. He's trying to gather up all the pages to give to the kidnapper in exchange for Alice.
Yes.
And Rose has told him she found it all.
Yeah. So he's like, cool. I can
Yeah.
get that from her, and then give it to the kidnapper, and I'll get my wife back.
And he wakes up, and naturally the police have been called.
Yeah.
Because the supervisor, the hobbler who brought you to the cabin, is like, they've been in there all fucking day.
He was also already a little bit skeptical. He's like,
Yes.
he's like protective of Rose.
Yeah, and he's like, you two guys going over here to visit this girl living alone. I don't know about that. You know,
Yeah.
the whole time.
He was like, "I'm smelling your bullshit,"
Yeah.
as he should have.
Yeah.
He did nothing wrong. But then, as you try to make your escape, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that got
So
intense.
Robert Nightingale,
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
the-
police force is there, but then
led by this FBI agent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
he-
It doesn't seem led. It seems as though the whole time they're kind of aware that he's a little off the hinges.
Yeah.
Right, but yeah, so he opens fire on Alan.
Yeah.
And
Who's-
also basically opens fire on the trailer park owner.
Yeah.
Who is? You don't have any weapons at this point. Alan's
No.
like literally like
Yeah.
I think hands up.
You're just a
like-
guy. Yeah, you literally are walking up, hands up, and he just opens fire on
He
the
just
two
starts
of you.
blasting at you. Yeah.
And then you
I was like, holy shit.
just have to dive, and then so you're like in a ravine basically, and they're like up on like the overpasses
Yeah.
and the roads around the ravine.
Yeah.
And so when I play it this time, I actually got turned around.
Oh no.
Like agents come down into the ravine and start chasing you.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see the first, because the first time I played, I just ran.
Yeah.
It becomes the opposite dynamic where now you're running from flashlights.
Yes, I wrote that
People
down
are
too.
shining the flashlights on you, trying to find you, and that's what you. As soon as the flashlight hits you, suddenly you're getting hurt.
The symbolism.
I didn't
Suddenly
notice
you're
that.
getting shot.
That's really crazy.
I think that's because
Yeah.
you started running immediately, probably, so
I
they
noticed it
didn't
as
catch
well.
up with you.
Wow.
But I kind of hesitated for a moment to get my bearings. Where the fuck do I go? And yeah, the moment they shine the flashlight on you, and the moment the flashlight hits you, you get shot.
You start getting
know what I
blasted.
mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Like,
yeah.
that is so smart. There's a lot of moments in this game where they take how the game works and puts you in like it switches everything around.
I thought they did a very good job with that at multiple points.
Crazy. I did not catch up on that at all. This whole little chase sequence is really fucking intense. I really liked it, and also it's so well lit with like the police lights and the flashlights and the car and everything. And so as you're going, you're hearing like radio chatter, basically saying like police are getting taken out, and you're seeing crashed cars. And it's like they don't know it, but it's the dark presence fucking them up.
And I love that as you come across like the destroyed squad cars, you can hear the sheriff being like, "You telling me this skinny prick Ryder's taking out all my officers right now?" You know, stuff like that. And it is, you can watch it. You're walking on like the cliff, and you see lights down in the woods, and then you hear like, "Oh my god!" You know, and they're getting like fucking like rocked, thrown against trees, and just murdered. Yeah. And then you later have to fight a lot of them.
Yeah.
As you go back into the woods and stuff, you realize that a lot of the people infected by the Darkness fighting are uniformed officers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which I think they serve as a higher difficulty enemy.
They take a few more shots.
Yeah. The game's good at slowly dripping in like new enemy types.
But they're also never, you never feel like you're like, I don't have enough ammo for this.
No, the game is always giving you, the game is always giving you all the resources you need to get any part
And this
done.
was I was playing on normal. I know you were as well. Yeah.
I played through on normal the first time.
So they did it. Yeah, it's good. Well balanced.
If you're aware of it, there's always enough equipment. And the game focuses more. There is a little bit of inventory management, or not inventory management, but making sure you have enough stuff, but you never are without. And it's more focused on the actual combat.
Right.
I mentioned earlier that there's not really any RPG elements, but there kind of are. As you progress, you find what you'd expect, new weapons and stuff, but you also find better flashlights. Which is
You
kind of
upgrade
cool.
your flashlight like 4 or 5
flashlights
times.
is fucking
There's
tight
a
as well.
flashlight, heavy flashlight, a lantern, and a heavy lantern.
The floodlight,
The heavy duty lantern, when I found that, finally, I was
for
like,
real.
"Woo-wee."
Yes.
And there's also, there's also like standalone like turrets and stuff throughout the game as
Yeah,
well.
like
Yeah.
spotlights.
Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
said
very cool.
I noted that it was refreshing to play a game that I didn't have to like. I love RPGs. I'm spending hours in a menu to increase my numbers. I really enjoy doing that. Kind of cool to just play the game. You know what I mean? It's cool. Just play a game. I'm just playing the game. I'm
Yeah,
not in a
the
menu.
most choice you have is like,
Do you want the shotgun?
grab the better flashlight? Of course.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, you can have a revolver or just like a generic pistol. There's like 2 handgun types.
I thought there was only.
I think there's only the one handgun. There's a handgun and the flare gun, because you have the revolver and the flare gun.
Oh, I really thought there was two handgun types. Maybe not.
I don't
So there
recall
is the
having a
flare
pistol.
gun, the handgun, and then 2 types of, there's the rifle and the shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then and then you have the double barrel and the pump action shotgun.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 2
You find,
shotguns?
you find the double barrel early on where you only have 2 shots and then reload, and then you have one where the clip is about 8 or 9 bullets.
You're
also
right,
play
you're
around.
right. And then you also have flashbangs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the flashbangs.
Fucking love
Oof,
those.
those were game
God
changers.
Which
damn.
you find like in one of these police cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the trunk, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a game.
And you're like, oh my god, yes, this is what I need.
Because
the flare is
Like
helpful.
Wake says that.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
The flare is really helpful because you hold it, but you have to walk slow, and it drains their health. But the enemies are kind of just like.
It only drains
they're
their
deterred.
shields.
Yeah.
Is the
They're
other
deterred.
thing.
Whereas the flashbang is a grenade.
fucking
Yeah.
kills them, and
It's
that
you
was
got
so fun.
because those were always the moments where I would do my worst is when I'm suddenly being swarmed by 4 of them.
Oh no!
And then this thing happens. I've noticed every now and then. That's the only part about the regular combat that frustrated me is if you have. I backed myself into a couple corners, which is my my own fault. But if you get 2 guys who seem to start their attacks at relatively the same time, you're
can't
going to
dodge
die.
Yeah.
You are going to die. You can't. You try to dodge away. You can't. You know what I mean? And I got very frustrated in those moments. But then it was just like, okay, I have to avoid getting caught in that corner. You know what I
Right,
mean? I just
yeah.
okay, I gotta go
The
back.
flare
after.
can help you if you have one there,
But sometimes
they're hard
I'm
to pull out
tapping
in
right
time.
bumper and you can't.
Yeah,
you
they're
get hit
not,
again.
it's not super fast.
No,
Everything
it's not,
has
yeah.
that kind of like delay that you have in like with the whip in Castlevania. You know what I mean? It's not like an instant button press. There's a little bit of load time.
Yeah,
And everything.
and I
as
think
there
that's
would be.
maybe their realism because they're like you have to take out the flare. You got to crack the flare. And
Yeah,
you gotta,
no one's
you
just
know.
like flare.
It's not just like.
So you eventually do get to the mine, which is cool. It's like he's like, oh, it's a museum now. It's not in operation anymore.
Yeah.
You find out more about Bright Falls being established as a mining town.
Yes.
A century or 2 before.
And then when you actually get into the mine shaft itself, did you guys
go down.
go
that
all the way
long-ass-
down the long ass path to the side that leads you
did.
down to the water.
Yeah.
really
Okay, yeah. I was curious because that was one of those. It was another exploration moment where.
Very far.
And I thought because of how far it was just going to be like, here's a new flashlight, here's a couple flares, here's some ammo.
Yeah.
But it was an actual plot point.
Yeah.
It was a story point, and I was like, I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention earlier.
You go deep through there. Yeah.
There are moments in the game where I was like, there's, I don't remember exactly where it is. Maybe we'll get to it. But like, you driving in a car and there's a bridge out behind you, like a mile away, and I was like, God damn it, because I saw that bridge back there. I hiked all the way back there, and it wasn't anything important to the story. There wasn't a manuscript page or anything, but there was unique dialogue where Alan was like, oh, the bridge is blown out. I guess they're even after me during the day or something like that. So everything has a little nugget. You know
This just jogged my memory when I asked about the mine thing, but I just remembered the only reason I went that far down is because you find a manuscript page earlier that says Alan continued walking further and further, you know what I mean, into the depths. It became overwhelming, you know what I mean? He couldn't stop, and I was like, oh, I gotta check this shit out. You know what I mean? It was like, I have to go down here.
So eventually, after you're waiting in the mine, he gets pissed because he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
And he like kicks a
gets
chair.
pissed as hell,
Yeah, he's up in like the top of like the old like mining town or whatever, and he's like just fucking kicking old wood shit around like mad.
Speaking of that kick, there were a few points in the game where you like kick open like kick away boards or kick open like old doors.
Yeah.
And like Alan's kick just like shatters stuff.
Yeah.
It's so unrealistic, but it was really fun. It was very satisfying to see him like kick a door to pieces.
It's also fun. I noticed in one of the DLCs, because you kick a lot of things down in the DLCs, but you don't even have to be looking at the door. If you hit the kick button and then you start to move him, he'll just still do the kick animation and it just busts open to the side of you,
funny.
which was fun.
So when you eventually do get closer to where you're supposed to meet the kidnapper, you hear him screaming at first.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, oh.
And I think there was a manuscript page that alluded to this.
Yes.
He's begging for his life.
Yeah.
He's like asking the darkness, like, and I think in that moment he admits that he never had Alex.
Yeah, they're just trying to they say we're just trying to get you to play ball,
Yeah.
He was a pawn.
And you don't know
the,
who the other person is yet.
Yeah, it was
Right.
he was a pawn of the dark force, whatever.
Or
it may
who,
be,
or whatever is
yeah,
motivating him.
to get the manuscript from Alan.
Yeah. The dark presence, like a sort of like tornado, like sucks him up.
Yeah. Oh,
And then
that was
you
brutal.
fall unconscious into the water. And it's like, great, am
Yeah.
I?
Well, because you were
gonna
about to
die?
get sucked up too, but you grabbed the flare. You
Yeah.
snapped the flares, which you
Oh,
read
that
about
was cool.
beforehand also in the manuscripts. Which this is also this was my first allusion to the other people have found these pages.
Yeah.
And other people have the pages that it seems like the pages you find are pages about you. Mm-hmm. And that seems to have sent some of the characters into a frenzy to find and kill you or to get you to play ball or be like, how are you doing this? Make it stop. This is freaking me out.
It makes Alan the antagonist in certain people's perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty much the end of that third chapter. Is there anything else you want to touch on during there? I mean, it's a pretty
It
straightforward.
was a pretty whirlwind ending, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it was a very whirlwind chapter, and it's the most fast-paced one.
Guys,
Yeah.
It starts you out really slow in the trailer park.
they're
but
episodes.
fuck! I'm gonna commit quantum suicide.
Fuck my ass. So that's the end of the third episode,
Third
pretty
episode.
much. But yeah, I mean, it's like not much happens in terms of gameplay. You're pretty much just, all throughout the game, you're getting to this point. You need to go to this place, go to this place. There's they keep like moving the goalposts on you, where it's like if you just get to this place, you'll be safe and you'll save your wife.
It was
if you
the
just
only-
get to this place, you'll be safe and save your wife.
It was the only moment in the game where I felt like part of the story was unnecessary. I felt like the pacing was a little weird because I felt like the whole mine sequence was unnecessary. You know what I mean? To a degree.
Right. It was there just to fuck. And I think that's something that you were supposed to be aware of is that, like, the reason they kept telling you, meet me here instead, was simply just to keep Alan dragged along
it's
in hopes
avoidance.
that it would, like, that he would be finishing the manuscript and getting him to, like, cooperate with them. And,
Yeah.
and if they never really, like, gave him what he wanted, they
Yeah.
could string him along further. And that I started to become aware of. I was like, when he didn't show up at the mine, I was like, okay, they're fucking with me.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection because at the time I was in the mindset of like probably the same mindset Alan was in that moment where I was like, what was the fucking point of this? You know what I mean? I'm like, I just almost died 5 times and trekked all up and down. You know what I mean? And I'm like, just to fucking now meet me here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That frustrating, like things that Alan says and thinks during those moments. Yeah, you really felt it. You're just like, he's like so stressed. The guy has his wife. Like he sometimes when he receives a phone call from the kidnapper and the guy's being an asshole and changing, like you said, changing the goalposts. He'll just be like, "Fuck," you know what I mean? He hangs up and he's really mad, as you would be.
I think it speaks to the writing. It's a really well written game. I think. It's like it's one of the more compelling stories. You know what I mean, of any game, as far as like, you really could make this into a TV show and it wouldn't feel like it was a video game that was now a TV show.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. Well, I think true testament to that is that one of the PDFs that come in the bonus files in the game is the script. And it's written in movie script format.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it reads just like a good script would.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, that is the end of episode 3. And this will be the end of part 1 of our Alan Wake discussion. We'll wrap things up now, and we will continue in part 2 and continue discussing episodes 4, 5, 6, as well as
7 and 8.
Special features.
Special 1 and 2.
Special feature 1 and 2.
Although they are essentially 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game was too big.
Game's too big.
Big game.
Might be 3 parts. We don't know.
I hope not. My God, I hope not.
Fingers crossed.
But if you like Alan Wake, keep your eyes peeled and why don't you smack that like button? Jordan, why don't you tell everybody what we should do?
I think everybody should really just click on that subscribe button right down below because it's really easy. No effort at all. In fact, you don't have to do anything. You can turn off notifications. You don't even have to know you did it. It just helps. But we'd like it if you also watched our videos and hit the like button every single time you watched it. Thanks.
I concur.
Jordan, never done it before.
No.
So I thought it'd be fun.
Fucking,
I'm usually pretty bad at it anyway.
Hit the subscribe button.
In that area. All right.
That's it. Yeah. Cool. That smells really good.